Hey everybody, welcome to Moment of Clarity. Thanks for joining me. Please take a second to let your friends know, to share this, to get it out there. I have to dig into this. I'm sorry, the mainstream media is just a fucking shit show of horrific, horrible zombie apocalypse shit. So I know I've already covered how the Russian bounty story has collapsed. We covered it on Government Secrets, my podcast with Graham Elwood. We also covered it like whatever it was, 8 or 10 months ago, about how we knew it would collapse and how thinly sourced and ridiculous it was to begin with. So why then am I again talking about the Russian bounty story? Because I want to go through exactly how horrific our mainstream media has been on this story. And of course, it serves a purpose. It's not an oopsie. It's not a, whoa, isn't that crazy? We got that one wrong. It was designed to do many things, to continue the McCarthyism, the Cold Warism, the warmongerism, the not bringing home of American troops, et cetera, et cetera. So it did a lot of things, and it was used for that reason. And again, I've already talked about that, so I'm not going to actually dig into the details of how it was so obvious this thing was going to collapse. I mean, maybe a little here and there. But what I want to go through is this guy did a great job of, he tweeted out a thread of how horrible each of the mainstream outlets was on this story. And keep in mind, those of us with any kind of fucking operating brain system knew that this was horseshit from the beginning. It wasn't like you couldn't figure out this was horseshit, and now we know. But anyway, so this guy, I don't know him. It says he used to work with The Hill, which is a pretty garbage outlet, but they have an occasionally good person. But anyway, this guy seems to have done a good job of putting together a bunch of the story, showing the headlines from your mainstream media. So here it is, Drew Holden, and he did a thread of the Russian bounty story. Today, the Russian bounty story, where Russia supposedly was paying U.S. soldiers, was paying the Taliban to kill U.S. soldiers. It quietly imploded, meaning the story. For the last year, the Dems and the media and others have pushed this conspiracy theory endlessly. If you think that's an exaggeration, look below. So he goes on to say the worst offender was the New York Times. And they actually went into showing which soldiers may have been killed by these imaginary Russian bounties that they made up. And we all knew they made up. If you know anything about media and if you know anything about anonymous sources, and when corporations are not willing to tell you what those anonymous sources are, then you know it's horseshit. Because if they had the evidence, they'd show you the evidence. Okay, so New York Times. Here are some of the headlines he grabbed. I'm sure there's more than this, but here are some of them. Breaking news. U.S. spies and commandos in Afghanistan alerted superiors as early as January to a Russian plot to pay bounties to kill U.S. troops. Officials said, oh my God. Here's the next one. The debate over Russian bounties has brought the deaths of Staff Sergeant Christopher Slutman, 43, Sergeant Robert Hendricks, 25, Staff Sergeant Benjamin Hines, 31, to the forefront of American consciousness after 18 years of U.S. involvement in Afghanistan. Now, this one's particularly horrific because they're making like the parents and families and shit of these soldiers think they were killed by Russian bounties that never actually existed. Never happened. And New York Times is basically saying to them, hey, your loved one was killed by Russia, not by Taliban, or rather by Russia paying the Taliban. Utter horseshit. It's now collapsed. The story has now collapsed after 10 months or whatever. But New York Times, have they run a retraction of all these? Have they deleted all these articles from the internet? No. New York Times. If it does come out as true, obviously the heartache would be terrible. Eric Hendricks' son was killed in Afghanistan. He's since learned that the attack may have been related to the Russian bounties paid to Taliban-linked militants. Jesus Christ, that's fucking horrific. They called up parents of soldiers who died in our insane fucking endless war in Afghanistan. They called them up and said, hey, Russia might have paid to have your kid killed. How do you feel about that? Even though they could have known, just as I did, just as many others did, that this story was horseshit. It's not that hard to figure out that it was horseshit. And they did that, and they called up these parents, and these parents go, God, actually the parent has more sense than they do, because the parent goes, if it does come out as true. The parent knew to say that, not New York Times. If it does come out as true. And then the New York Times says President Trump repeatedly excused Vladimir Putin's behavior and is not known to have confronted him about a CIA assessment that Russia offered bounties for killing U.S. troops in Afghanistan. Maybe it was because Donald Trump is dumb and narcissistic and sociopathic as he is, knew this was horseshit. Maybe that's why, considering how many of us knew it was horseshit at the time, and it doesn't take much reading to figure that out. Maybe he did. By the way, keep in mind, Donald Trump, not good to Russia. Donald Trump put more sanctions on Russia than fucking Obama did. Okay? So anyone telling you, oh, Trump's so easy on Russia, that's horseshit. And then New York Times says, find our fact checks for the 2020 debates. And they give a link. You want us to go to you for fact checks, considering the fact you're lying about this bounty story. You're lying to the parents of killed soldiers. You are a fucking shit show, New York Times. I mean, how fucking pathetic is that? So wait, let's go on, though. Let's get into CNN. Drew Holden says they were by far not alone. CNN pushed the conspiracy theory as frequently as anyone. You'll notice, though, while some of the stories note the bounties are, quote-unquote, alleged, eventually CNN dropped the word alleged, despite the narrative being disputed. Here are some of CNN's headlines. Reports that a Russian military intelligence agency put a bounty on the heads of U.S. troops in Afghanistan launched President Donald Trump's team into a new cycle of confusion, apparent half-truths, and contradictions. You're the one spreading half-truths. Like, literally, this is false, and you're accusing... I mean, no one's called Trump more horrible names than I have, but it's like, then you see these moments where Trump literally was right in calling this shit a hoax. I mean, he literally was right. He's a fucking horrible human being, did some horrific shit, only in it for himself, doesn't give a shit about you or anyone else in America except himself, and yet he was right, while CNN pushed this garbage. President Trump refuses to press Russian President Vladimir Putin about Russia's alleged involvement in bounties to kill U.S. troops in Afghanistan. And Representative Louis Gohmert, a Texas Republican, tested positive for COVID-19. I think that's unrelated. Although knowing CNN, maybe they connected the two. But Russia's paid bounties to give COVID-19 to Tom Cotton and Louis Gohmert. Or does he go by Gohmert, like the Americanized ridiculous version of his name? It's quite possible. Anyway, CNN, former intelligence officials scoff at White House denials that President Trump wasn't briefed on Russia bounty. Oh my God. So the intelligence officials that are lying to us know they're lying to us. They're the ones saying that Trump was briefed on the horseshit that they made up. The White House used a last-minute briefing to continue defending President Trump against accusations he let languish intelligence about Russia paying bounties to the Taliban for killing American troops. So you'll notice now they've dropped the alleged. There are no more alleged horseshit. There's no more alleged garbage. And yet they continue to push the story. They continue to say it has to do with Trump. Yes, I can see someone said that it's pronounced Gohmert, which is the fucking wrong way to pronounce it. But, you know, I'll let him pronounce his name however he wants to fucking fuck up his name. So let's see. Then CNN also made a habit of having elected Democrats on to suggest a path forward on these unverified allegations, glossing over the fact that they may or may not even be true. Here's Senator Gillibrand and Duckworth. It's an outrage, says Kirsten Gillibrand, reacting to President Trump and his administration's handling of the Russia bounty intelligence. Quote, we need a full investigation. We have an obligation for our service members to get to the bottom of this thing we made up. we do have a need to get to the bottom of the stuff of the garbage we're spewing. Senator Duckworth is demanding more details about the Russian bounties that were offered to the Taliban. Notice they've, again, no alleged anymore. They're not alleging it anymore. They're just saying it like it exists, like it's a real thing. That were offered to the Taliban to kill U.S. troops in Afghanistan, and sent a new letter to Defense Secretary Mark Esper voicing her frustration with the info provided by the Pentagon to date. Yes, why isn't the Pentagon answering for the stuff we've made up? And then there's Brian Stelter. Now, many of you may know this already. Brian Stelter is a sad sack of shit human being. He does the Media Watch TV show on CNN, pretends to be watching media to make sure it's doing a good job. But in fact, he is pushing all kinds of garbage propaganda, both for the American State Department, but also just really for corporate America, for CNN. And it's kind of hilarious to watch him go after a network like Fox News while CNN will do their own version of completely false bullshit like this. You know, it's one thing for other people to go after Fox News, which is, you know, Fox News, I'd say 98% false. So it makes sense to go after Fox News. But when you're coming from CNN, it's hilarious to watch this guy be like, CNN doesn't have any problems. But, you know, Fox News, they're making stuff up over there. All right, so let's see some of the CNN stuff from Brian Stelter, accomplished CNN host. By the way, he has a book out called Hoax, which is hilarious considering he is reporting on this hoax as if it's real. The Russia bounty story sparked criticism from all manner of intel pros about Trump's ignorance, inspired the famous press secretary line, "The president does read," and renewed questions about why he seems so soft on Russia. I took a closer look at the genesis of the story. Oh, did you, Brian? Brian says, is the government system for whistleblowers so broken that concerned officials went to the New York Times to blow the whistle instead? Sanger in New York Times says that's a valid theory. If folks, yeah, right. It's called the CIA planting garbage because they know it's useful to them. If folks trusted the Inspector General system, this story might well have not leaked. Right. Quote, but because President Trump has dismantled or politicized much of the system, those who want to make clear that the president has ignored the intelligence may have felt they had no choice but to come to the press. So, I mean, the levels of garbage this is really tough to take it all in. And then Drew Holden asks of Brian Stelter. He tweets at Brian Stelter, I'm asking you earnestly, will you retract this story or at least amend it significantly given the implications of your reporting? If not, why not? I'll tell you why not. Because Brian Stelter is a sad, pathetic hack who is a liar, a fraud, a propagandist, and goes on CNN and hosts a show calling out liars, frauds, and propagandists. This is a so-called journalist who does critique of journalism and yet has never stood up, not for a second, for Julian Assange, the most famous journalist in prison maybe in the world. And Brian Stelter would not take a second to defend that man, considering WikiLeaks has never published something false. And here is CNN publishing truckloads of false shit. And yet Brian Stelter would never and has never stood up for Julian Assange because he is a sad, pathetic human being who, you know, is lying on all fronts. All right, let's move on to the Washington Post. Washington Post gave Trump 4 Pinocchios on a fact check when Trump said that the intel, which again was unverified and has since evaporated, was disputed. Here is the Washington Post, which rates lies by Pinocchios. Trump's 4 Pinocchio interview on Russian bounties. I mean, think about how the level of ridiculous this is. This is a made-up story that all the mainstream media decided to go ahead and go with, even though they had no verification of it. And then they give Trump the max number of lying stars, the Pinocchios. They give him the max number of Pinocchios for saying that the intel was not verified or that it didn't really prove anything. Going on to more Washington Post. Timeline, what we know about the Russia bounties intelligence and Trump. Washington Post again. Why didn't the U.S. rebuke Russia for its Taliban bounty deal? Maybe because it was completely false and anybody with half a fucking brain cell knew it was false. Washington Post. The only people dismissing the Russian bounties intel, the Taliban, Russia, and Trump. And everybody with half a goddamn brain. You fucking idiot. You pieces of shit. So yeah, there's that. Let me see. Does he have more beyond the? Oh yeah. Now we move on to MSNBC. You knew there'd be some good ones with MSNBC, right? They wouldn't fall for this crap, right? Rachel Maddow wouldn't jump up and down screaming from the hills, "Russia's paying the Taliban to kill us," would she? No, never. Drew Holden says probably the most unhinged was in their insistence was MSNBC. They pushed this conspiracy theory time and again across their platform as if the allegations were rock solid, even though they came from anonymous sources within the CIA that proudly has stated that they lie, cheat, and steal. Remember, Mike Pompeo, former head of the CIA, said publicly that at the CIA, we lie, cheat, and steal. We have whole classes on how to lie, cheat, and steal. He said that. He thought it was very funny because he was telling the truth, but not funny. Yes, I saw someone commented, "Mad cow." And I call anyone who falls for the Russia bullshit that they have mad cow disease. It's very clever. I mean, if I can just say so for myself, it's incredibly clever because I took mad cow disease and I made it mad cow disease. And I mean, honestly, you're not going to get more clever than that anywhere on the planet right now. Maybe in 100 years, maybe, but not right now. Okay, so MSNBC. New low. Army veteran hits Trump over Russian plot against troops. Oh, that's interesting that Army veterans were upset to learn that Russia was paying bounties to have them killed because they believed all of these garbage outlets, which is not surprising. People believe these things. And thank you for the donation. All donations go to people who are struggling right now, who have emailed comment censored at protonmail.com. And no, Joe, the pun does not hurt. The pun was incredible. And, it's upsetting that you think that. Clearly, you just don't get it. That's one MSNBC article. Here's another one from Frank Figliuzzi. I don't know him. Quote, when he says this intel hasn't reached his desk, that fake news is behind the bounty intelligence. He is lying, says Frank Figliuzzi of Trump. There is no reasonably legitimate reason. Did you really? That was the quote? Man. All right. There is no reasonably legitimate reason for this president to continue to protect Russia. Actually, Trump was calling an actual real hoax a hoax in this case. And Trump put more sanctions on Russia than Obama did or any president really in the past several decades. So he was not easy on Russia. He also pulled out of weapons deals, disarmament deals that Russia strongly supported and agreed with. MSNBC former CIA officer Douglas London, which let's keep in mind, CIA, lie, cheat, steal, right? That's their whole thing. They know that. They cheat. They lie to the American public. In fact, Congress withdrew or revoked the stipulation that propaganda should not be used on the American people. They canceled that out a few years ago to make sure they could continue their propagandizing against the American people. Former CIA officer Douglas London says President Trump will continue to try to redirect the message regarding purported Russian bounties to Taliban fighters to kill Americans and will wait until the next change in the news cycle to hope it goes away. Oh, he's hoping this fake story will go away. Again, one of these things Trump was right about, and MSNBC loading on the shit. Next image. Live now on MSNBC, Senator Markey discusses the Russian bounty plot with Lawrence O'Donnell. Lawrence O'Donnell, known for propagandizing for the state better than most. Does a wonderful job. Drew Holden continues. MSNBC unsurprisingly got their chief Russian propagandist, Rachel Maddow, with Maddow disease, involved on this one too. You would think that the Russian collusion hoax imploding would chasten her. Apparently not. So here's some articles from Rachel Maddow. On Russian bounties, what did Trump know and when did he know it? What did he know of the fake story we've made up and when did he know it? Again from Rachel Maddow, the problem with Trump's denial in the Russia bounty controversy. Again from Rachel Maddow, on alleged bounties, White House targets leakers, not Russia. Confronted with the intel about Russia putting a bounty on the heads of U.S. troops, the White House is taking action by hunting the leakers. Yeah, where were you when fucking Assange was imprisoned and various leakers around the United States have been imprisoned, huh? How much, Rachel, did you stand up for John Kiriakou or Edward Snowden or I think she actually did maybe some supportive stuff for Chelsea Manning. Not enough, but probably some. But how about, Jeremy Hammond or Jeffrey Sterling? How much were you on those? Rachel Maddow. Russian bounties to Taliban-linked militants are believed to have resulted in the deaths of U.S. service members, according to intelligence assessments. So she has no problem spouting this garbage. And I remember catching like a few minutes of her broadcast once when this cycle was first starting. And she literally put up images of soldiers that she said had been killed by Russian bounties, meaning she had made up that these soldiers who had been killed, they had legitimately been killed in Afghanistan in our 20-year war that should not be fucking going on at all right now. They literally had been killed. She showed their faces and said, this is who Russia had killed. And it's like, wow, you have taken making up shit to a whole new level. You literally are showing the dead faces, the faces of dead soldiers in order to back a horseshit claim that you know is horseshit. I mean, that is a level of immoral and unethical that is so fucking incredible and disgusting. It's just amazing that this is allowed to go on. And of course, she makes $30,000 an episode. Maddow is not MSNBC's only conspiracy theorist. Here's Joy Reid. For those of you who don't know, Joy Reid, another horrifying MSDNC, MS State Department Talking Points host. Joy Reid tweeted, has Donald Trump condemned Russia for putting bounties on our troops yet? Just making sure I didn't miss it. Yeah, did you miss the part when this story was fucking fake? Did you miss that, Joy? Because have you apologized for this and retracted all of your probably hundreds of tweets and stories and shit? Did I miss that? Did I miss that, Joy? Because I might have missed it. Did I miss it? Joy Ann Reid. I love, she has pro-democracy in her Twitter handle. Yeah, pro-democracy, except when it's Bernie Sanders actually democratically defeating Hillary Clinton, defeating Joe Biden, if we actually had a real democracy. Joy Ann Reid says, other findings, Biden is seen as a better uniter and commander-in-chief and more respectful of the military, which should surprise no one given the bounties and Trump's adoration of the Russian and North Korean dictatorships, but is still interesting to see hard data on. Yeah, Joy, way to, basically root for nuclear Armageddon against Russia and North Korea. So I guess you just want to see millions of people killed. Would that be, rather than peace with North Korea, peace with Russia, you'd rather just see this end in like some sort of hot war where millions die? Joanne Reid continues, can't wait to hear Donald Trump's apologists in Congress and their voters. I can't wait to hear your apologists try and defend this. Can't wait to hear Donald Trump's apologists in Congress explain why they are okay with this. Donald Trump knelt before Vladimir Putin while Russia was offering Afghan militants bounties to kill U.S. troops in the story I just made up. Joy Ann Reid continues, particularly after the way Donald Trump derided people who serve in the military as suckers and losers and looked the other way while Russia put bounties on their heads. I mean, honestly, was anyone stupid enough to really believe this garbage? God. All right, now we move on to Politico. A lot of people said it's a fake issue. Trump confirms he didn't raise Russian bounties with Putin. Maybe because it's a fake issue, Politico? Jesus Christ. Politico is a true dumpster fire of an outlet, by the way, if anybody still reads their garbage. Politico, Russia bounty flap highlights intel breakdown under Trump. Yeah, intel breakdown. This is the intelligence community literally lying to the press. This is like CIA, likely. Someone in the intelligence community remaining anonymous, leaking this to the press, knowing it's false, knowing it's bullshit. And that's the intel breakdown, not Trump's behavior. Benghazi probe offers a roadmap to Trump's Russian bounty briefing. Yeah, right. Russian bounty intel opens new rifts on Capitol Hill. Maybe it's a rift between those who don't believe mainstream media's garbage. Okay, and I don't know if we have any viewers who are still hanging on to the idea that NPR isn't just garbage corporate state propaganda. If you are, I feel really bad about this upcoming these upcoming tweets I'm going to read, or headlines I'm going to read. Here's NPR. Afghan war veteran talks about bounties Russia offered Taliban to kill U.S. troops. Notice, no alleged. They didn't use the word alleged. They didn't use the word could be. They didn't say maybe. They didn't say proposed. They didn't say, whistleblower says. Just straight up, as if it's a fact, bounties Russia offered Taliban. Former CIA chief of staff on whether President Trump was briefed on Russian bounties. Trump calls bounty report a hoax despite administration's briefing of Congress. And finally, from NPR, experts say intel should have reached Trump on Russian bounty program. So there's all of NPR's garbage. And in case I didn't mention the beginning of this, and I have covered it a bunch before, but in the past week, basically a week ago, even Biden's administration admitted that there was that the Russian bounty story is nothing more than rumor. That is basically what they have admitted. Despite putting new sanctions on Russia, this last week, they said this story, they can't even make up proof for it. They can't even. Okay, so let's see how many more we have. I think we're almost done. But so here's Daily Beast. Again, true garbage outlet, by the way. Perhaps, no, I don't want to say that, but Daily Beast is along with all the other McCarthyism garbage. It's just straight up anti-Russia, Russia. I mean, honestly, like you would think McCarthy was living under their desk the way they type headlines. So here's Daily Beast. U.S. intel walks back claim Russians put bounties on American troops. So this is them basically, this is the new one. So this is them admitting that this was walked back, and walked back is the lightest possible euphemism for admitting it's a rumor, that literally there's no truth to this. So this is them last week saying the claim has been basically refuted, it basically collapsed. Yet they have not retracted or deleted these previous articles. Trump officials didn't want to tell him about the Russian bounties. U.S. warns Russia on bounties while Trump cries fake news. Russian bounties for killing Americans go back 5 years, ex-Taliban claims. Go back 5 years. Right. Yes, this has been going on. This horseshit we made up has actually been going on for 5 years. Here's a few other outlets. Reuters, Biden slams Trump over handling of Russian bounty intelligence. AP, Russian bounties further strain Trump's bond with veterans. NBC News, U.S. officials say intel on Russian bounties was less than conclusive. That misses the big picture. So here's them admitting that they didn't have much info and saying, but you know what? Let's keep believing it anyway. That really misses the big picture. Here's New York Daily News, another garbage outlet. Trump kicked off his holiday weekend with a visit to his private Virginia golf club, hitting the links for the third time in less than a week, despite growing outrage over the Russian bounty scandal and coronavirus spikes. Coronavirus spikes, yes, that's fine. You probably shouldn't be golfing as the country is dying from a pandemic, but whatever. Here's Joe Biden. This should surprise nobody, right? Biden says President Trump's response to U.S. intel that Russia's purportedly offered bounties to Taliban fighters to kill Americans is clearly a dereliction of duty. Yeah, why doesn't he believe the fake thing we made up? And I don't know how he could not read and not see and not know so many different things that have come up. Kamala Harris. Donald Trump called John McCain a loser, yet he let Putin get away with placing bounties on the heads of our troops. I mean, that's pretty fucking incredible. All right, he goes through other senators who did it. Then there's Speaker Pelosi, of course, jumping on. Speaker Pelosi on President Trump's claim the Russian bounties allegation is a hoax. And she says the president himself is a hoax. I don't even know what that means. I think that was her brain short-circuiting. Nancy Pelosi again. Americans deserve to know whether the president was briefed about the shocking reports of Russian bounties on American lives. And if not, why officials chose not to inform him. Oh, that showed her with Jake Tapper. Another, I'm sure he doesn't have Jake Tapper in here, but I'm sure he spit out more Russian bounty garbage than maybe anyone, with the exception of Rachel Maddow. The shocking reports, this is more Pelosi, reports about Russia's bounty on American troops is as bad as it gets, and still President Trump refuses to confront Putin. Why won't Trump just confront Putin on the stuff we're making up? God damn it. Damn it. So there you go. I think that's pretty much it from the Drew Holden Twitter feed. I realized that despite I had already covered the fact that this bounty story had collapsed on government secrets and other things, I needed to go through and show you just how fucking pathetic these sources are. I mean, you have to understand, this was a major story. This was not a little blip on the radar. This was like they were hammering away all day, every day. Russian bounties, Russian bounties, Russian bounties, Russian bounties. It served two purposes, right? It helped them undermine Trump, which, you know, I'm not going to cry for Donald Trump. What a fucking sack of shit he is. So why would I care if they undermine him? But in order to do it, they felt the need to create a completely false story, to further McCarthyism, to further toxic nationalism, to further pushing us closer to the edge of the brink of nuclear Armageddon. I mean, these are the worst human beings you can possibly fucking imagine. And I just had to go through some of those to show you exactly what it is they're saying, because it's so fucking pathetic. I'm going to wrap up here. But yeah, thank you so much. If you missed one of these, I do these every single weekday, except sometimes. And they're at leecamp.com. So if you ever miss one, check it out. And if you haven't seen the new Redacted Tonight, I hope you will go check that out. That's at portable.tv or youtube.com/Redacted Tonight. Although, honestly, if you go to leecamp.com, that's probably the best place to get it, because it has the link for the full episode right below the video if you want to see the full episode. All right, guys, thanks a lot, and keep fighting.